I'm here.
Hi, Archie.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you today?
I'm great.
I'm great.
Well, I'm very happy to see you. So I know that we are starting this book next, and we were going to do that today, but I'm going to push this until tomorrow because, usually when we finish a book, I do an extra video, often by myself, where I am doing some writing about the book that we read. Maybe I am writing about the problem and solution, or about cause and effect, or about a character, or comparing two things. But I show how to do some writing about the book. But for this book that we just read, Minecraft Deep Dive, I want to do something different today instead of writing, and I want you to help me. So I decided that today we would take a few minutes to kind of wrap up the book, and I want to show you how I look at the characters in the story after I read the book, and how I think about what kind of person they are. I analyze the characters. I do something called a character analysis. And I want to show you how I do that because I think you would be really great at helping me. And then tomorrow we will start Jigsaw. So I don't have Deep Dive with me right now. I have the next book in the series, which comes after Deep Dive, called Gassed in the Machine. But the picture of the characters at the beginning are still the same, except for Poe. And these are the characters. So these are the characters we can analyze. So I went ahead today and kind of got ready for us to meet. And I have my, well, you can't really see because of the light. Nope, still can't see. I have my iPad ready for doing character analysis. So I'm going to share that with you so you can see. Okay, so this is what I did to get ready for doing a character analysis with you. You can see that I have taken all of our characters from that page. So I have Poe, and I have Jody, and Harper, and Morgan, and Ash. Those are the 5 kids that work together. And to do a character analysis, I want to think of character traits. I want to think of words we can use to describe each character. A word that will tell us what kind of person is Poe, what kind of person is Jody, what kind of person is Harper. So usually a character trait will be an adjective that describes what kind of person the character is. But we can't just pick any word we want because it seems right or it feels good. We need to have something called evidence. Evidence is the proof. Evidence means we can find something in the story that proves, yes, Poe is brave, or Poe is adventuresome, or Poe is helpful. We need to find something that he does or says in the book that can be the evidence for the character trait that we give him. So what I did for each of our characters is I went into the book and I found at least 2 things that they said or did in the book that I think will give us some evidence for what kind of person they are. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. If you think you know the character really well, and you already have a character trait in mind that you want to use, then you just have to ask yourself, okay, what did this person do or say in the story that proves it? The other way to do this is to first think of things that the character said or did in the story, and then ask yourself the question, what kind of person would do this? What kind of person would say this? Now, because the characters do many different things and say many different things, especially in a chapter book, we might have many different character traits for each character. And that's okay. All right, so we're going to start with Poe. And I'm going to show you the 2 pieces of evidence, or 3, that I found. Now, for each character, I chose 2 different things that happened in the story. The first one was at the very beginning of the story when these 5 kids saw on the beach the sea turtle eggs that were hatching. And they each one of them had something different to say or a different reaction to the waiting that they needed to do before the sea turtle eggs would hatch. So what Poe said is this. He said, "I wish I could take a picture of this." And then he said, "Can you say seashore eggshell selfie 5 times fast?" Poe liked to change his appearance in the game. Tonight, he was dressed for the beach with swim trunks, snorkeling gear, an inflatable float wrapped around his waist, and a shirt that only a dad would wear. So for each of the characters, I look at how do they respond to seeing the sea turtle eggs. The other thing that I looked at was when they were looking at the treasure map that they found in the shipwreck, and they were trying to decide what should they do. Should they follow the treasure map and go on an adventure, or is it too risky? And each one had a different reaction. These are the 2 things I looked at for each character. Here, when it says it felt like a dead end, it was talking about how the characters had been crossing several biomes in the first 2 books of the series that came before this one. And now they had come to the ocean. There was no more land to explore. So it felt like a dead end. But Poe was thinking the ocean could be crossed. It didn't have to be a dead end. Poe wanted to know what was on the other side of the ocean. So they were talking about it. And then Poe said, yes, especially if there's a treasure map pointing the way. Who knows what we might find? And then Morgan had said, well, it could be a trap. But then after that, Poe said, he shrugged, kind of like, oh, no big deal. Then we will deal with it together. So, okay, if it's a trap, then together we can do anything. We can deal with it. We will figure it out. So when we look at this evidence of how Poe handles things, what kind of words can we come up with to describe him? Any ideas? Poe has a great sense of humor. And, you know, when he says, can you say this 5 times fast? The way that he dresses. And so someone who has a good sense of humor, I think of them as being light-hearted. This is kind of a compound word. And you can see inside of light-hearted is this word heart. If we feel light-hearted, then we feel very happy and we don't worry about things being too serious. Okay, another word I thought for him is that he is very positive. He's not negative. He doesn't worry about things. He looks on the bright side. So he has a positive attitude. And I think he's also very adventuresome. That means he is ready to go on an adventure. And he really doesn't worry. He thinks, you know what, if something goes wrong, we can deal with it together. And that makes me think of someone who is confident. So these are very positive character traits for Poe. All right, our next character that we're going to look at is Jody. So here's Jody. Let's look at the evidence from Jody. So about the sea turtles, she said, I wish I could bring a turtle home with us. I just know they're going to be adorable. Jody was the youngest, and she had a soft spot for animals. And when they were talking about whether or not to follow the treasure map, she was really okay with it either way. She looked on the bright side either way. And one of the things that she saw as a bright side, if they didn't follow the treasure map, she said, well, we could go all the way back to our castle. We could make it even bigger, and I could create more sculptures. If I think even more of the evidence in the story of things that Jody has said, she is a very positive person. She's artistic, and she has a great imagination. So I'm going to say here that she's also very positive, but I'm going to go ahead and put artistic because I know that she likes to draw. She likes to make sculptures. She likes to do art. She's very creative because artists are creative. She also has a great imagination, which means she is imaginative. How do I know that? Well, the evidence, which I did not write down here, is from that day when she and Harper went down into the basement of the school, and she was investigating the science teacher. And Jody was convinced that the science teacher came from Atlantis or mermaids. She was sure that this science teacher had some special powers. And so she was very, she used her imagination a lot because every idea she came up with was really not possible, but it sure was imaginative. And I think also she's very caring. Something else that I did not write down for the evidence, but remember near the end of the story, she is the one that kept encouraging Harper to be a team player, to not try to solve problems by herself, but to share the problems with the others on the team and work together to let each other help. And I think she really cared about Harper. All right, can you clear the board? Thank you. All right, our next person is Harper. Harper is someone who likes science. She's an interesting character. Well, in response to the sea turtles, to the baby sea turtle eggs, Harper smiled to herself. All of her friends were wishing for something. She didn't have anything to wish for, though. To her, this moment was perfect just as it was. And then the eggs hatched. And when it came to thinking about whether or not to follow the treasure map, I'll let you clear the board. Okay, thank you. She said, well, maybe we should just go back. I liked that village. We could raise some more sheep. I could get more practice with the enchanting table. Remember in Minecraft, Harper liked to memorize formulas. She liked to do crafting. She liked to use the things in her inventory to make new things. Just like in the science lab, she likes to do experiments. She likes to create things. She likes to see what would happen if she does this, this, and this. She likes to observe. She's really a scientist at heart and a creator. So not as much of an explorer as Ash. She is content to just sit in one place and use her brain and observe and create, invent, and think. So some words that we might use for Harper could be observant, because all scientists are very observant. They're good at observing things with their eyes. She's also very patient. She could sit there for a long time waiting for the sea turtle eggs to hatch. She was in no hurry. I think Harper is also kind of intense. Intense means she's pretty serious about things. She doesn't laugh as much as Poe does. She takes things pretty seriously. She's really a thinker. I might put that here, being a thinker. Now that's not an adjective. I could turn that into an adjective by saying thoughtful, although thoughtful often means kind. Another noun that I might use to describe Harper, this is a very long word, environmentalist. Environmentalist. This is someone, there's the word environment. And then environmentalist is someone who really cares about the environment, about nature, about protecting it. And Harper was very interested in helping the coral reef in this story. So let's take a look at Morgan next. So let's look at our evidence for Morgan. Morgan says, I wish you would be quiet. He says, it isn't safe at night. Anything could be out there. Morgan played more Minecraft than any of them. His knowledge frequently came in handy, and he was very serious about keeping the others safe. And when it came time to think about following the treasure map, he said, it could be a trap. So what words could we use to describe Morgan using that evidence? Well, I think he's very cautious. He wants to be careful. So he's cautious, he's careful, he's concerned. Now, concerned is a little bit more of a positive word than saying anxious. Anxious is a little bit more of a negative word. But he is a little bit of a worrier, that's true. And you could say that a worrier is anxious or concerned. But he's also very knowledgeable. In fact, he knows the most about Minecraft of all of them. So I'm going to start with the word knowledge, and then I'm going to add knowledgeable. Oftentimes we get rid of the silent E at the end before we add A-B-L-E. However, we need that E so that the G can say J, knowledgeable. All right, now we're going to look at Ash. Ash is a really fun character. And she says, I wish they would hurry up and hatch. So they are the sea turtle eggs. I wish they would hurry up and hatch. Ash said, we can't stay on this beach forever. Ash loved exploration. She wanted to see everything there was to see in this digital land. She didn't do a lot of standing around, either here or in the real world. And when it was time to decide about the treasure map, so Ash here is responding to what Harper and Jody had said about, well, we could go back, we could go back to the other village, to the castle, raise more sheep, do sculptures. We could use the enchanting table more. We could do more crafting. And Ash said to that, that's not really what Minecraft is all about, though, at least for me, Ash said. Sure, building is fun, but I don't want to stay in one place. I always want to see what's out there beyond the horizon. So for Ash, I think we want to say that she is an explorer. So there's the word explore. We can just add an R on the end, and she is a person who likes to explore. She is also a discoverer. We can write the word discover to discover new things, put an R on, put an ER on the end, and we've got a discoverer. That's someone who likes to discover things. She is also adventuresome. It's a little tricky to write with my finger. And I think she has a lot of energy because she is ready to go. So I'm going to say she is energetic. Someone who is energetic, has lots of energy, and is ready to go. In fact, I could just say that. If I'm going to write ready to go, we have a little way to do that where we put these dashes between the three words. Ready to go. You know, when it comes to watching the baby eggs hatch, though, we could say that she's a little bit impatient. She doesn't want to wait for the eggs to hatch. So those are some words to describe Ash. If we look here at these characters, I have a question for you. Which two of these characters do you think are the most similar? I want you to take a look at two words that I'm going to highlight here.
Adventuresome.
Yeah, who are the two people who are adventuresome?
Poe and Ash.
Yeah, and those are the only two who were really ready to go when they found the treasure map. Jody was okay not going. She was okay either way. Harper was okay not going. She was okay either way. Morgan was really worried about going. I think he might have been happier if they didn't go. But Poe and Ash were really encouraging of people to go, to just see it as an adventure, be confident. Confident is another word that I could add for Ash. I'm kind of running out of room here, but she's a lot like Poe in a few ways. And you know, the other thing for a good word for Ash would be brave. I didn't put this evidence down, but do you remember when they, let me go like this. Do you remember when they were making their home under the water and those bat things were flying around? The phantoms were flying around above the ocean, and they had to build that home under that home base under the ocean where they could breathe the air. And Ash is the one that figured out how to do it. But in order to get rid of all of the water inside that shaft she built, she had to get some flint and then let the inside of the shaft burn from the flint so that all of the water and everything inside the shaft would burn up, leaving air for them to breathe. And that was really scary, but it was also very brave. So that would have been some evidence to show that Ash is very brave. My next question for you is, which one of these characters do you think is the most like Annie from Jack and Annie from Magic Tree House?
But I need to say something for Ash. You said he's very brave, right? And
Yes.
and last time when Harper was going into the dark nether, Ash said he will go with Ash.
That's another good example. That's more evidence that Ash is very brave. You're right. And when Harper was ready to go into the nether by herself, that is evidence that Harper is very independent. Harper does not really do well on a team. She really needed Jody to tell her to trust the team. Harper wanted to take care of everything by herself, which means she's very independent. Which one of these characters do you think is the most like Jack, and which one is the most like Annie? Well, you see, when I see this word here, cautious and careful and anxious and concerned and worrier and very knowledgeable, who do you think this reminds me of?
Jack.
Jack. So I think Morgan is a lot like Jack. Now, when I see someone who is just ready to go, and she likes to explore and discover and go on adventures, confident and brave, who does that remind me of?
Annie.
Yes. So I think Ash reminds me of Annie and Morgan reminds me of Jack. Well, I was thinking of one other character to look at for character analysis, and I had Ms. Minerva, Doc Culpepper, and Theo. And I decided the one I was going to do for the last one would be Theo. So here's Theo. And to find evidence for Theo, I found 3. The first one is when he was in the lab with Harper, and he and Harper were lab partners, and he asked Harper, don't you and your friends go into the computer lab after school? Don't you do Minecraft? And he wants to know if he could join them. And he told Harper that he's a gamer also, and that he has put some of his builds online. And then we also found out that he is the one who took coral from the aquarium. It was his plan. He was excited that it was working. He said the coral jewelry was his idea, and that he took it from the aquarium, sold it to one of the basketball players. Now, this is actually wrong here. He says that he borrowed it and then sold it. Well, borrow means you're going to give it back.
It is not borrow. It is
stole.
Yeah.
That's right. Because if you're going to sell it to someone, you're not going to get it back. So you can't say borrow if you are not going to give it back. So he is lying right here. So this is evidence that he's lying. And so he stole the coral from the aquarium. He sold it to a basketball player. He did this on purpose. It was part of his plan. And then at the end was the most mysterious thing. This was on the last page or two. And he asked Harper if he can join them for Minecraft. And she said no. And he said, well, you'd better hope I don't find a way onto your server, because I could really spoil your fun. And that left Harper with her mouth open as he walked away. And it made Morgan think that maybe Theo is the evoker king. So what could be some words we use to describe Theo? Any ideas?
No.
Well, we could say he's sneaky. We could say that he's dishonest. Dishonest means he lies. He doesn't tell the truth. We could say that he is
Badly.
What's that?
Badly.
Badly?
No.
I think we need more evidence before I could give this word to Theo. But if Theo really is the evoker king, And if he really does want to cause them problems and do damage, then the word I would use is malicious. Malicious is actually not a good word to use for anybody. This first part, M-A-L, means very bad, maybe even evil. And someone who is malicious is someone who wants to hurt something. They are not being friendly. They are not being helpful. Kind of, you know who's malicious? The hostile mobs. Hostile mobs, we could say, are malicious. However, I don't think we have enough evidence for that. So I'm just going to leave sneaky and dishonest. So we don't have very good character traits for Theo. We are not seeing Theo as one of the good characters. Okay, before we close, this is our character analysis for the book, okay? But the other thing that we like to do when we read a story is we like to make sure that we know what the problem in the story is. And one of my problems with this story is it doesn't let us know what the problem is. We read here that the kids had crossed several biomes over the last few visits. That's in the first 2 books of the series, in their search for answers. So this part right here, it says in their search for answers, which means they have questions, but the author never tells us what their questions are. So I think the problem in this story is that they are going into the Minecraft world, into the ocean, because they are searching for answers to questions. They have questions, they need answers. That's the problem. But the author does not tell us what their questions are. We do know here earlier in the paragraph that someone or something had caused a huge migration of zombies and skeletons in the Minecraft world. But if that is happening in the Minecraft world, I'm not sure that would explain why did they go into the Minecraft world in search of answers. This part here, if they're going to go into the Minecraft world in their search for answers, to me that means they had questions before they even went into the Minecraft world. So I'm very curious what those questions are. I assume that the author told us in the first book of the series, but I think if an author is going to write a series with 5 books, the author should remind the reader in each one of those books what the questions are that the kids have that they're trying to answer, so that we really are clear for the whole story about what's the problem that they are trying to solve. The other thing we like to look for when we read a book, after we have read it and we think about it, we want to know what was the theme in the story. What was the author's message to us? The theme is not going to be about something specific that happened in that book, a problem that was solved in that book. It's going to be more a message of something that we can take with us from that story that we can apply to life, that can help us with life. So I think we found the theme here when we read what Jody was saying to Harper. She said, you're worrying about a problem, and instead of asking for help or even just talking to us about it, you're trying to put all the responsibility on your own shoulders. But you don't have to fix everything, Harper. You're not alone. And so I think the theme of this story was really about teamwork. Share your problems with your friends, with your team, work together, help each other out. Don't feel like you have to solve every problem all by yourself every time. So I think this was the theme, or one of the themes in the book. I'm sneaking in here from the next day because I remembered after we finished the video that I had not mentioned everything about the theme that I wanted to. And because this is the last video that we are doing for our book Deep Dive, I wanted to sneak it in. So we had just finished talking about how a theme in the book was about teamwork. There was another place in the book that talked about this theme even more clearly, and I wanted to mention that. So at the end of the story, they say that they had just finished one of the biggest problems they had ever faced in Minecraft, and that at first it had seemed like the problem was too big, like it was too big a problem to solve. But they had solved it. How? By working together, the teamwork theme, by making sure that nobody had to face the challenge or the problem alone. And so both of these passages in the story are really emphasizing the theme of teamwork, and that if you have a problem, you don't have to face it by yourself. You can get help from your friends. It is easier to solve big problems when we work together with others, when we are part of a team. But there was another theme that was also mentioned in the last chapter, and I wanted to include that here. This is where they had talked about how small actions can have big consequences. And if we have enough small actions, they can add up to something truly great, maybe even saving the planet great. And the example that we talked about was recycling, and how if you have like a plastic water bottle and instead of throwing it in the trash, you put it in recycling, that might seem like a really small thing, but if everybody does that, all of those little actions can add up to being a really big thing that can help save the planet. It can become a really great thing. So even small actions can have big consequences when we add them up. So those were the two themes, teamwork and how small actions added up can have big consequences and be really helpful. The problem I'm uncertain of, other than I know they had questions that they were searching for answers for. But where I wanted to spend most of our time today was practicing how to analyze characters by looking at the evidence and then asking ourselves, what kind of person would do this or would say this? What does this evidence tell us about this person? What words can we use to describe this person using this evidence? Okay, I'm going to hit stop share. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, so long, Cheddar Chip.